Why are you all looking at me?
What else am I supposed to
I had to plug the computer in. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Star Citizen Live, Flight, Light, and Insight. Because I grew up on far too much Dr. Seuss. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee, and if you've never seen Star Citizen Live, don't look at me like that. If you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, it's where we take about an hour out of the end of our week and we hang out with some of our developers. They're usually very busy and trying desperately to get the next patch out the door. And I go by their desk and I'm like, hey, stop doing that important stuff. Come over here and do this instead. And usually they say no. But occasionally, I like to trade on friendships and get people to say yes. And that's why joining us today are four people I'm very proud to call friends. Matt, Steven, Elwin, and Chris. How you doing, guys?
Great.
What's up?
Very good.
Great.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Welcome to the spaceship. Welcome to the UK. This is your first trip to the new studio.
Thanks
Yeah.
for having
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
How's your trip been so far?
It's been awesome.
Awesome.
Loved it.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
Lovely.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Great seeing everybody. The studio's awesome. It's amazing. Bustling. A lot of energy.
Yeah, if only we could show it. We're on the show quite often, and we talk about how great the studio is and everything. We haven't shown a whole lot of it. It's because I had to promise Chris that I would wait until every little aspect of it is done, and then do a nice big kind of reveal. He's a man who wants to build experiences and stuff like that. So it's very. I'm chomping at the bit to do a lot of things that I have waiting in the bit.
He's got to do one of those Chris Roberts sections where he actually goes around and shows everything, and then people can meme it.
Oh yeah, or he's not ready. I'm gonna bring back the old wingman head cam and just like, hey, and put this on him, and make him go through the studio. That's not a promise. It's a spoiler. No. This is already going to be one of those shows. So, if you haven't figured it out, sometimes these shows are ones where you're going to learn a whole lot about Star Citizen, have questions answered about various spaceships, the work that's being done, the patches. This isn't one of those. This isn't going to be that week. Today, we are goofing off. We are hanging out. We are getting to know some of our friends, some folks who have been here for a very long time and stuff. And I just want a chance to hang out and catch up because we haven't talked much in the week. This is your last day here. So let's start off with just some introductions because there's got to be some people in there that are like, I don't know who the heck any of these are. Chris, I think you're the longest tenured person here, so I'm going to start with you.
So,
who are you and what do you do for Star Citizen?
well, I'm Chris Smith. I'm a ship artist for Star Citizen, lead ship artist. I've been with the company, for about 10 years now, or 10 years, a little bit over 10 years now, I suppose, a couple days. And I've been building all the ships since then. Built a lot of ships like the 300i, Constellation, and Corsair most recently. And that's what I do.
Were you the very first ship artist?
Not the very first ship artist, but the first ship artist in the Austin studio. Yeah. Back when CGBot was or essentially the first ship creators.
Third-party partners, but internally, in-house as a CIG
Correct.
employee, it was you and Olivier.
Yeah, well, he was actually like concept, look dev. Mark Skelton was the art director, and then just me. I was the lone ship artist in the U.S. actually. Yeah.
And your first ship was the original 300.
Correct, the original 300.
Before we threw it out and did it better.
And I redid it actually.
Yeah, that's right.
I did the new version.
I got halfway through that save and I'm like, I hope to God he's the one who redid it, or I'm going to sound like a. Okay, so 300, and besides the 300, besides the Corsair, you called out other ships you've worked on. You helped with at least the exterior of the original Constellation Phoenix. Or the Constellation series, rather. What other ships?
The Scout. God,
The Cartual?
the Hornet. Yeah, actually did
Yeah.
the Hornet series. I redid the Hornet too at one point. F7A Hornet.
Scout, yeah.
So let's dig deeper.
quite a few.
Why do you have to keep redoing your work, Chris? What does this say about you as an artist?
It's because we evolve as our techniques evolve and our pipeline and our processes. So
And the design needs.
we just get better and better. That's why.
Yeah.
And then Matt, were you here before Elwin, or?
Yep.
Yeah, just
you
a
were.
little bit before. Yeah.
Right, so Matt, who are you? What do you do?
Matt Intrieri. I am lead ship tech art. and I work with the U.S. and U.K. teams. All the ships kind of flow to my little team where we do tech animation as well, tools, pipeline, and destruction, and all those good things like shields, SDF shields, gravity. I mean, I worry about a lot of things, optimization, and yeah, just that's about it. That's all.
Getting
Not
things
much.
to work.
Not much. Yeah, troubleshooting. I'm kind of the first defense before going to engineers. So people come to me with an issue, try to work it out, and if I can't do it, then we go bug an engineer.
Now, Matt may not remember this, but many years ago, 2018, 2019, I attempted to launch a new sub-series within ISC ATV back then that discussed roles, specifically the jobs that are within game development and what they do. And we were going to start with tech artists because I thought it was one of the most misunderstood and often just mystified positions in game development. And it's one of the few segments we ever put together that we never finished, we never aired. There were some technical problems, absolutely nothing on your part. It's somebody forgot to turn the mics on when we recorded and did a whole interview with no audio. So we wait.
Was that what happened?
That was what happened. That's why I never aired it. We got in there. It's like,
See, I thought I just embarrassed myself.
No, it was like, why
didn't know.
does the sound so bad? It's like, all we have is camera audio. And I'm like, yeah. So I messed that up terribly.
Oh my God.
So because one of the very few things we ever filmed and never got to air. So tell people now, without taking up the length of an entire segment, what does a tech artist actually do?
Well, it's a wide variety of things. Yeah, it's just there's a lot. If you go to each department, there's a tech artist embedded in there, and so we just facilitate. I don't know. Yeah, there's
Facilitate functionality.
The link between art and tech, basically.
Someone has to put the string.
Hence the name.
Right.
I do a lot of tech.
I do a lot of
what he does.
rigging right now. I do a lot of rigging. We do the landing gear physics. We balance that out. I spend a lot of time on player friction with the ships, so getting in and out of the ships is.
I spent a lot of time with player friction.
Yeah, really.
Are we talking about the same thing?
I don't know. Are we?
Different kind of
I
friction.
don't know. Ships exploding randomly. I worry about these things. Getting trolleys up and down ramps. I worry about these things. So.
You're this kind
There's
of
a lot to worry about.
Well, that's why I wanted to start with tech artists back then.
Yeah.
It's this weird kind of membrane that sits between disciplines, sits between design and content
Yeah.
and animation, and just has to kind of take everything and pass it through one another and make it gel.
Yeah,
If that works.
it's like
Really
that.
hard thing to describe. This is why we were doing a story on it. And I wish it worked.
Yeah.
We'll come back. We'll do it again.
Well, that'd be great.
With audio.
That'd be great. Yeah.
And Elwin,
Yeah.
who are you and what do you do?
I am Elwin Batchelor, and I'm the vehicle art director in the U.S. So I manage the Austin ship team and the L.A. ship art team as well.
And before being the vehicle art director, you were a vehicle artist. You made many ships.
Yeah, I was actually out. So Chris was the first one on ATX. I was the first ship artist, I believe, in LA. Mm-hmm. There were other artists working on ships, but they were on the concept side when I got there.
Yeah.
So it was a crazy experience. I jumped in right before, I think, the first time we showed the Constellation at CitizenCon. Mm-hmm. And so the first ship I actually did any work on was the original Legacy Connie that eventually got redone as well. I think the second one was the M50, and then from then on, I think I've touched, I don't know, it must be like 50 ships at this point, bits and pieces. The last big one we just came off of, actually the whole team was on it, was the Corsair. And yeah, I'm slowly going to be backing away from doing that kind of cool stuff.
As you grow into your role as the U.S. vehicle art director.
Yeah, so yeah, Chris will have to just keep going.
Now, it was recent. It was. We won't talk too much about the summit that's going on right now, but it was recently revealed on Twitter. Shout out to Daniel that we are building a ship team in Montreal, and so like that. Will you be overseeing art direction for that team as well?
We will be, yes, I'll be assisting with part of that. We're closer in time zone than the UK, so we'll be switching off. So I think early in the day they'll be starting off with the UK, and then if they have anything that they need support with, that'll come to the US.
And Hosmer.
up?
Where do we go? Where do we start?
I don't know.
Who are you, Hosmer?
I am Stephen Hosmer. I am the senior vehicle systems designer, and I'm in the LA studio. I've been here about 7 years. I think this is my 7th year, which makes me like the youngest out of this bunch that have been here. It's like 7 years. That's not very long.
No, we've all been here longer than you.
Yeah. So yeah, and I work on design. I design the ships, do concept briefs, and then I work with the art team to implement them, put them into the game, get them flying, make sure that the backers can actually use them and interact with them and that kind of thing.
And for people who haven't watched the 60 or 70 segments and shows we've done on vehicle stuff and the design, when you say design, you are not talking about design in a traditional artistic sense. People tend to assume that means a pencil drawing or like an architectural sketch. You do tech design, systems design.
Systems design.
So what is that role with regards to ships?
Like it starts out with us like kind of designing what a ship would be and what we want it to be, and then we work with art to figure out what's it going to look like and how that's going to function in our game. And then once it gets out of concept, we actually work in white box and we like kind of block out everything that we want it to do, and we figure out all of the interactions and all of the systems and everything that's going to like be in the ship at the end. And then we go back to art and be like, hey, this is what we want, and then they build it all out. And hopefully, at the end, we're like, yeah, that's what we wanted.
Hopefully.
part of that is identifying new features that this ship does something that we've never done before, and so that will branch off. And sometimes I'll work with like an engineer on that, and that kind of thing. Or Stephen will work.
It's a lot of designing.
We also identify like what new features we might need for a ship, and then we'll go to the engineer that would be in charge of that and be like, hey, we want this. Can we have this? And they'll be like, no. And so,
so you determine what a ship does and how it does it,
Yeah.
and why this ship is good and why that ship sucks.
well, yes, we try to determine that at the concept phase, and then we refine it throughout the process.
But you're the reason this other ship sucks.
Sucking is
Yeah.
not a goal, though.
Right.
It's my fault. Yes.
Send your letter to Stephen Hosmer, 12322 Exposition Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90064.
I think the final say is in the balance team.
But more than ship sucking, at what point in the conversation do you decide it punches above its weight class?
That's just at the very start. We always know it's going to punch above its weight class, and we just assume that's going to be what it is, and we just put it right at the top of the design.
Have you ever made a ship that just punches at its weight class?
I think maybe one of them.
The Arrow.
I think it was the Mantis. Just
We're gonna start that's gonna start a Reddit thread.
I worked on that one.
yeah, you do.
Now, Chris and Owen, I want to talk about. I'm always curious about how people get into this industry, because there's so many things that we can do. I mean, this is all Hosmer can do. But for normal people, there's many options in your life. What brought you to game development? Like, how did you decide I want to make games, and then how did you decide within games I want to make spaceships?
Well, go ahead.
I think mine was, I kind of got lucky, to be totally honest. So I always wanted to get into games, but I'm from New York, so the games industry in New York is very, very small. So at the time that I was getting close to graduating college, there weren't really that many options for me there. So I actually started doing web design work. And at a certain point, I think I got a call from one of the people that I went to college with who had graduated a year before me. And he just remembered my work. And they were looking for someone to fill in a 3D position, like an associate 3D position. So they gave me a call, and I basically left my highly paying graphic design job to go get paid literally less than half of what I was getting paid there, to go and do indie game work, basically at a tiny studio with, I think it was like 5 or 6 people or something like that.
Why?
Because
Games.
it's games. It's what I've always wanted to do. So I love games. Been playing games since I could afford to buy them, and I basically tried to study everything that I needed to jump into them. So
How about you, Chris?
Well, I was sort of just like a fine artist. For a long time, I came out of like a sort of an art trade school when I grew up in Germany, and then I moved to the States, and I was just sort of like bouncing back and forth, and not really. I always knew I was going to do something artistic, and I always played video games, of course. But it really didn't like materialize in my head, or really thought about it like seriously. Oh, like I want to be a game artist until like a little bit later on, starting to have a family and so. And I was like, oh, I need something like stable and steady. And
So you picked
I know
video
games.
games.
But-
Games to study.
I was like, hey, video games is right down my style. You know, like just sort of, you know, I thought it would just be like an awesome gig, and went to Artist Institute in Dallas. Did associates there 2 years, and went straight into the industry and worked for 3D Realms on Duke Nukem Forever. That was my first gig.
Oh, when's that come out?
It's already out, but it eventually did come out.
I didn't realize you grew up in Germany. You Army brat?
Yes, yeah. I'm born in the States in Oklahoma, but I moved there when I was 7.
No.
Mom German, dad
Yeah.
American.
Cool. It just never came up. I didn't realize we had that in common. Matt and Steve, not on the art side. Well, a bit on the tech art. You know, it's like this. How did you fall into this?
I was intending to go into film post-production, I was a big Industrial Light and Magic fanboy. Like, I just love what they were doing with Star Wars, and I ate up all that kind of stuff, the model making and things. And then, so I was studying in San Francisco, and I got an opportunity to have a job for doing children's software for Lucas, and I was like, oh, I'll take it. And then I was in games, and I just stuck with that, and yeah, that's
What was the first game you worked on?
the Gungan Frontier. It was a sim, like a sim Earth thing with little creatures going in around the swamp.
Oh yeah, I think we all know about the Gungan Frontier.
On Naboo.
It's clearly one of the most popular Star Wars games ever.
It really was. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I worked on that, and Droid Works, and yeah.
I've heard of that one.
Yeah, that one won an award. I came in. Actually, I can't take credit for that. That was not me. That was I came in right when that was being released. So I helped test, I guess.
Get your name in the credits?
Probably not. No, I don't think I did.
How about you, Hosmer?
Yeah, I guess I went to college for programming in a specialized game dev school, and after that, I was just like, I'm a terrible programmer, but I did graduate. So I just started looking for jobs, and I was up in Seattle at the time, and there were a bunch of QA jobs, which didn't require much. So I just got into QA, and I just kept working until I got to a smaller company, and they were just like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I would like to, design. And then they just let me start doing it, and I just kept doing it. I'm like, okay, this is cool.
That is an incredibly common game design story right there. Start as QA, wonderful entry point into the industry, and then as you're working QA, eventually somebody's just like, you've learned enough doing this. Yeah, we'll give you a shot. What was the company that gave you your shot?
Sandlot Games.
Sandlot Games.
Yeah, they don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
They made casual games, we didn't make Diner Dash, but we made Diner Dash clones, and then eventually it got bought by Digital Chocolate, which was owned by Trip Hawkins, and then
Wait. There's a company called Digital Chocolate?
Digital Chocolate, yeah, it was owned by Trip Hawkins, who founded Atari, I think.
3DO.
Or 3DO, I don't remember.
3DO.
Something.
Yeah, and then I don't know what happened after that. I left. But it's right that we hire a lot of people from QA, and I think even I was talking to a bunch of the guys in this studio, and they all started in QA. So.
Oh yeah, it's the most common entry point in all of video games. All the way up to senior producers, lead producers like Ricky Jutley got a start in QA. It's EKD got a start there. Tyler Wicken, our director of community, got a start in QA. It's a very popular entry point into the industry because it is a like you said, it requires very little prior experience. It values deductive reasoning and being able to keep your thoughts straight, recognizing why this does this versus something else, and you can learn almost every other discipline because everything in video games requires a QA of some point. So you can move around between disciplines and learn a little bit of graphics and a little bit of design, and a little bit of tech art, and so until you find a place that interests you and everything, then you learn more, and it's a great place to go from there.
Yeah.
This is a recruiting video, by the way. Shout out to Lucas Genver and our talent acquisition team. I did it, Lucas. I did it. Chris and Elwin, I want, as far as coming to CIG, you have a bit of a shared origin story here. Chris, you were one of the judges on the only reality TV show that we've done here at CIG, The Next Great Starship. Before I know what it is, but I want to hear what your description. What is the next great? What was the next great starship?
Well, I mean, it was like it was a recruiting tool. There you go. I mean, yeah, essentially it was a game show of some sort where we had contestants built out. Initially it was a weapon, and then they moved on. People got eliminated, and then other people moved on. And we had like a judge panel. I was part of it, along with Chris and Mark Skeleton, Chris Roberts, Mark Skeleton, Sean Tracy, myself, and Chris Olivia. And Sandy was the host. And yeah, it was a great time, great show. We're flying a little bit by the seat of our pants back then, still.
Back then.
Yeah, well, relatively. And but yeah, besides that. We got this fabulous guy from it. He was a contestant on there. And unfortunately, he didn't make it all the way through the competition. He had to bail out for personal reasons back then. But yeah, we ended up, we loved his stuff. And besides him, we actually hired a few other people from that. So yeah, it was cool, great experience.
Yeah, when I used to do the tours of the LA office and I'd bring people by your desk, I would like to say, he goes, Elwin didn't win the Next Great Starship, but he kind of won the Next Great Starship.
Yeah.
It's like you may not have gotten the limited prize at the end of the thing, but I mean, you're here now as U.S. Vehicle Art Director.
Yeah,
because of your
lost,
involvement in.
I lost the competition, but I won the career.
He played the long game.
Yeah. Along with the names escape me right now, but there were like 2 or 3 other folks.
Yeah, we've had several people that have come through.
Who we brought in through that. Yeah. But you make a good point. It's like it was a secret recruiting tool to find talent and stuff like that. It's I said it's what happens with ISC. It's what happens with SCL. It's like we send out clips to different reporting companies. The talent acquisition people is like, hey, have you done something with Tools Team? I'm like, yes, I have actually, and here's the Tools Team. They send it out to Tools Team people that they're looking to recruit and stuff like that.
But it was also, it was great to get the fans engaged in our process early on, and sort of, I mean, people were already excited about our, the game and the vision and everything. But once we did that, we got them involved in everything. That kind of like gave it another boost, I think.
Yeah.
Frogboy Rat in Twitch chat says, please announce a ship. Boy, are you watching the wrong show. Have we ever announced a ship on SCL? Is that what we've never announced. There's a salvage ship coming in 318 called the Vulture.
Vulture, I worked on it. You worked on it.
Announced
that.
Yeah.
With
you weren't part of the. So that's how Elwin joined CIG. Chris, backtrack. You said you've been here for 10 years. That is pretty much the sum total of time the company has existed. It's how did you get involved with this?
Well, I worked with in Austin with a previous company. It's called Lightbox, and right before CIG started up, Eric Peterson started up the Austin studio. Right before that, our company shut down, and so basically Eric just came over to us and purged a bunch of us from there. Mark Skelton came from there, Chris Olivia, Brian Brewer, Tom Sawyer, he's still with us. So yeah, a bunch of us actually came over there from.
I haven't talked to Tom Sawyer in forever.
Yeah, he's still in Austin, and yeah, that's how that happened. So we all got hired. They needed a ship. I was already a hard surface artist for that game, and then so it's like, hey, you want to work on spaceships over here? I'm like, and then not too long before that, I saw the the trailer, the Star Citizen trailer, Chris Roberts and everything, and we were kind of working on at the other company. We were starting working on some like space game, but I was like, I wasn't like too excited about it. It wasn't that great. But when I saw that trailer, I was like, ooh, it's like that looks exciting. It's like I kind of want to work on that. And then I popped out. I was like, yeah, hell yeah.
How'd you come aboard, Matt?
I was contacted by SIG, and so I just kind of came in. So I don't know what I was doing at that exact moment. I think I was actually looking for work, and they reached out, and I came in.
Because you were working on the big Gungan games.
Talked to Chris. Yeah, they were pretty successful, but not, we didn't do very many sequels to that. But and then it was good. I met Chris and talked about the vision and everything, and it was very exciting. Very exciting. Back then, the vision was a little smaller. It was before we hit that milestone in fundraising where we kind of like opened it up a little more. But it was still a kind of a daunting proposition because I was actually the only tech artist at the time. So I was doing tools I was thinking a lot about, ships, but there was characters, and we hired another tech artist to work on characters. So I kind of went towards my love, which is more like the ships. And
Chris was the first ship artist in Austin. Owen, the first ship artist in LA. You, the first tech artist in LA. Hosmer, you showed up on a tour and never went home.
Yeah.
What was your? How did you come to be on CIG?
What was it? I worked on a game called Murdered Soul Suspect, and then afterwards that company kind of shut down. So I was just like not working for a while, looking for a job. And then my friend, who I played D&D with at the time, like showed me, I've got this ship in this game. It's like a constellation, and we can you can get on it, and I can fly it, and you can do one of the turrets. I'm like, that sounds really cool. And then I looked up the company, and I'm like, there was a job posting, so I applied, and I got interviewed, and I came over here.
Well, that's about all we have time for. I mean, at this point, I told you it was going to go by fast. The show's going to be a little shorter than normal. You guys are here on a summit. You guys are here for a big ship and vehicle summit and stuff. And I've promised to get you back in time for your last bits before you have to go. But before I let you go, is there anything more you want to say, share with the community? Something that'll get me in trouble? I don't know. Whatever you feel like.
I don't know what I'm allowed to say.
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, get you in trouble. I'm working on the whole C.
Okay, you're working on the whole C.
Whole C.
Yeah.
Just it's been really cool. It's a culmination of a lot of tech building up over time. It's like a level that moves like an accordion, and I'm working on this walkway. It's got all these rings and undulates, and trying to make it an experience. So when you stand inside it, it just transforms around you. And working with the audio team, trying to hook up audio on the rings, so when you're in there, it's going to be really cool. Yeah, I'm excited.
How about you, Owen? Anything you can talk about?
Well, I can say that we finally have the Santokai in production.
Okay.
So that's previously announced. But beyond that, the ship teams, both in the UK and the US, are working on some really cool ships, which I can't really say.
There's
too much
that one
about,
really
but
cool ship.
There's
the one that
more
does the thing
than
and
one.
does the thing. It's really cool.
There's more than one. So
I really
we're doing
like
some
it.
really cool.
Really excited
new,
about that.
Yeah, we're doing some really cool new things we haven't done before. So that's going to be exciting.
I
What a
can't say
terrible
what I'm working
What
on.
a terrible.
Yeah, sorry.
How about you, Hosmer? What are you doing?
We just finished the Santokai white box, and I think we're moving on to the X1 after that. Yeah. So hopefully that comes out this year. hopefully, I don't know. Maybe it's up in the air. We'll see.
The views and opinions of Stephen Hosmer do not represent those of Gladdenberry Games for Space Industries or its subsidiaries.
I don't know when. You got to get a producer in here to actually figure out when things are coming out.
We weren't actually supposed to mention the. Okay, yeah, so the X1. There we go. All right. Stephen, Matt, Ellen, Chris, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank
Get
you.
out. We're going to play a video real quick, and when we come back, we'll have members from the Light Summit on the show. Stay tuned.
Do you hunger for the challenge? Pitted against nature, you will need discipline, determination, and the courage to never give up. Looks like you need a beer, mate.
Cosmonaut is the premier online magazine for Star Citizen, packed full of ship reviews, outfitting guides, upcoming events, org interviews, current affairs, history, and more. Cosmonaut is your comprehensive guide to all aspects of life among the stars. Our talented team of writers, editors, designers, photographers, and artists are all passionate pilots and aim to bring you stellar images, incisive articles, and incredible design. Season 1 of Cosmonaut is available for download now. Head to www.cosmonautmagazine.com to get all 12 issues completely free.
Oh, well, now you're trapped over there. Now you can't. Now you can't go. No, they not in this shot. You can probably see you in the other shot. So yeah, so Chris and Matt decided to hang out anyway. So we are going to have to get you back to your thing in a bit. Joining us on the show. No, before we do that. Remember, I wanted to take a moment to talk about some of the cool crap that's here in the thing. I want to point out these two lovely creations right here. Do we have my zoom in camera? Look at this guy. This is a gorgeous pirate gladius made by Star Citizen Policus. Here's a pirate gladius. Look how slick that is. These are not one of the JRDF models like these other ones are. These were handmade by Policus. And then here is I think one of the executive edition, the civilian F8 Lightnings. Very cool, very cool. Yeah, he got better with the stands as he went on. So yeah, Policus, a Star Citizen named Policus. Some great work. Thank you so much. All right. I was really afraid I was going to knock them over. And yeah. Joining us on the show now are members from the Frankfurt and Montreal lighting teams. We got Chris, we got Lars, and we got Alice. How you doing?
Good.
Awesome, thanks.
How are you doing?
I'm getting through. I'm getting through. Chris, you are the senior lead light. Who are you and what do you do?
I'm Chris Campbell. I am now the assistant art director for lighting for Star Citizen.
Everybody getting promoted. Love to see it. So you're the assistant art director for lighting.
Art director for lighting. Yeah.
And what does the assistant art director for lighting do now?
Well, I mean, you know Ian. You've met him before. He's a busy guy. He's got He's a big team now, so he basically needed some underlings to kind of help take certain parts of the art pipeline and feed that direction through to the lower teams as well. So I take the direction from Ian. I put a kind of a lighting spin on it. I think more about the lighting side of it. He's more, bigger picture stuff. And then I provide that feedback to the team, and we try and make the best looking lighting that we can for each location that we're working on.
Cool. And you're over here from the team in Frankfurt.
Yeah, I'm normally based in Frankfurt. Yeah.
Alice, you're here from Montreal. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, my name is Alice Pepin-Desjardins, and I'm from the Montreal team on lighting with Lars, and I'm a junior lighting artist. I've been at the company for a bit less than a year.
Yep. How do you like it so far?
I love it here.
Did you have any idea you would be doing this today?
Not at all.
You said your whole name. I was really going to try to avoid it. I was like, I switched to first names just so I didn't have to try to do the last name because I'm stupid American and can't pronounce anything. So what is it that you do?
Well, I'm a junior lighting artist, so basically when we get like a new mandate or a new location, I get information from Ian and also from Lars and Chris, and then we start together maybe with one of the other lighting artists working on the various locations to kind of bring them to life with the concepts and kind of the direction that we got.
Okay. And Lars?
Yeah, Lars Hofrichter. So I recently also, after Chris became an assistant art director, I now am a lead lighting artist at Turbulent with Alice. And yeah, before that, I think that happened like in December. So pretty recently becoming a lead. Yeah.
We're all still figuring it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the normal, growth process.
Yeah.
It's. I think there's this assumption that, the minute we announce something, it's like it's done and in place and whatnot, and because that might be how other companies sometimes do it. Folks who have followed the project long enough know that we basically share everything with you about 5 minutes after it's decided. We bring you along for the ride. So when you hear that, we're building a ship team in Montreal, or expanding out a lighting team. Like, this is some relatively new, very fresh, very raw stuff. So welcome. What have you, if anything, have you worked on so far here?
You mean like since we're in Manchester? Or you mean
no, since joining the team at CIG, or Turbulent.
So I mean, I was the first lighting artist at Turbulent when 2 years ago, and yeah, in the beginning I was basically responsible for every lighting, or for every mandate that Montreal was working on. So I did work on all the hospitals. I worked on the derelict reclaimer, the settlement, yeah, the Dama settlement. Also recently worked on the racetracks, the new ones. Yeah, and right now working on the Lorville Skyline, the remake of the Lorville Skyline.
The Lorville Skyline, who was just announced through the Roadmap Roundup on Wednesday, is now being moved into the Q1 2023 patch, the what we're calling 319 and stuff. So yeah, everybody was like, "Oh, he said it's moving faster," and I'm like, just wait. And here it is. Let's hope it actually pans out, or I'm going to look like a jerk. And what have you worked on, Alice?
Well, a lot of the same stuff. I'm working on the Lorville Skyline right now, the new one. And I've also worked on the recent racetracks that we've been working on, have been announced and stuff. Before that, a lot of stuff I've worked on is not out, so since I haven't been here as long as these guys.
So a little behind the scenes how this works. We had a second guest in for the second half of the show, and unfortunately they were tied up with other stuff and ended up dropping out at the last minute. And about less than 10 minutes later, I get a message where it goes, "Hey, we're here visiting. We just want to see the spaceship." And I came up, like, "You want to see the spaceship?" "Yeah." I go, "I'm gonna put you on the show." So when I just
so we're basically a sloppy seconds.
Don't laugh and encourage him. I don't need that from you. So that threw me. So Chris, all in all, besides the Lorville Skyline, what are your folks working on these days?
I mean, it's a lot of unreleased stuff. We're working towards the Pyro system, and there's a lot of things that we want to do in the Pyro system. A lot of really big new location archetypes, like the colonialism outposts, space stations, UGFs, that kind of stuff. So we're just kind of in various stages of production with those, just trying to stay in step with the rest of the environment teams. They're pushing ahead faster than we can keep up with, so we're just trying to hang in there. Yeah.
You hiring?
I don't know, actually. I think we've got a new starter actually in 2 weeks, so I think that's gonna put us in a good spot for the rest of the year.
Yeah, but they haven't started yet.
They haven't started yet.
All right.
There's still time.
So yeah, I want you to look at this camera right here and tell this person what they need to know before they show up.
Send me your ArtStation page.
Wait,
is important.
I thought they've already got the job. What do you need the art?
Oh, you mean the new starter?
The new starter, yeah.
Oh, what does he need to know? I hope you like bratwurst.
So they're starting in Frankfurt then.
They're starting with me in Frankfurt. Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. At this point, I really do have to let you guys go and whatnot and get you back to the show. You guys were supposed to walk out the other time. You might see Entrieri back there. It's like, I have promised your directors that I will have you back. So, yeah, at this point, I've still got like 15, 20 minutes of the show. So, I'm having an idea. I'm going to try something. Chris, Lars, Alice, thank you so much for letting me turn what was supposed to just be a quick tour of the ship into drafting you into the show. You're free to go. You're free to go. We don't have a transition for this. I'm playing it by ears. I'm going to try something. So yeah. So go ahead. You guys can take off.
Okay.
Hey, stay with me.
Thanks.
So they're going to walk in front of the camera right here. Oh yeah. Don't watch your bike. Yep. There you go. We're off the path. Tom. Are you there? Can you adjust the cameras to the guest cameras and point them at what did we learn? And I'm going to grab something. Hold on. Stay with me. We're going to see if this works. If this doesn't work, this is why you don't pull a audible in the middle of the show. Hold on. This is either going to be good or it's going to get me in trouble. Is this all right? Can you hit this with the camera? Okay. Oh, I need markers. Hold on. I need markers for this. All right. What colors do I have? I got black and I got green. My testing goes. You see me? Hold on, am I in there? Hi, everybody. Give me just another minute. That's Tom. You've heard me talk about Tom. That was Tom walking by. He's going to walk by one more time. All right, switch the camera. All right, he's got to get back to the desk. All right. Oh, am I in the... No, I'll just, like this. Here we go. Hi. And then if you can, move the monitor to where I can see it. I'm Jared, and this is a new segment that I've decided to just pull out of my head. Disco discusses? Disco details? I don't know. If it doesn't work and we never do it again, it won't need a name. So you let me know in the comments what we should call it. I like alliteration, so disco something. I would like to talk about something, explain something, go into detail on something that's a bit misunderstood sometimes. And that's called, let's use black. That's called the build system. And yeah, that's my handwriting. That's my handwriting. So the build system is how we make patches. It's where every patch comes from. And every patch, every build, comes from a place that we call game dev. Now, game dev works on, there's a couple different layers. There's a couple different persistent environments to development. So we're going to draw some lines here. Let's do this, and this, and this, and this. So we're going to call this one game dev. And we're going to call this one staging. And we're going to call this one release. And we're going to call this one live. Now, these are for persistent environments. These always exist. And 90-some-odd% of all of our developers are usually, their work is usually floating around this area or that. Go ahead and cross. Hi, Tom. So game dev, oh, that line that go across. Game dev is where everything exists. Game dev is where code and asset come together. It's like the earth beneath your feet. Everything grows from it, and everything goes back to it when it's done. Staging is a place where assets are developed. That's like one layer removed. It's a place where if you're building 3D art for ships, or you're building a set of armor, or you're building an outpost or a space station or whatever, you're probably working in staging. This is because game dev can be quite volatile. Game dev is where everybody's code and everybody's assets are all colliding and being checked in and checked out. So you don't want to work in game dev if you don't absolutely have to. So staging is this kind of level where the artists can kind of do their thing and maintain some stability. Release is where stuff goes. It kind of elevates. It's another gate. If staging is more stable than game dev, then release is one more stable than staging. It's where we start to put things that are getting ready to go out into release. This is a bit simplified. There's also like main, there's some other things. We're not going to go into every single one in case there's a DevOps person watching and they're like, he's murdering this and whatever. I'm simplifying it a little bit. And then live. Live is an environment that's basically like an internal mirror of whatever's on the live servers right now. So we can mess around with something that is just like what you have live, but without actually being in the server that you're in and stuff like that. It's where hotfixes and stuff generally come from. Now, if all the assets, most of the assets in the game are being developed in staging, the question is begged, where's all the code? Where do all the features get developed? So features, this is all going to make sense why I'm doing this at the end, I hope. So features are developed in what are called feature streams. So we're going to do a couple different feature streams here. And they all branch off of game dev at some point. So let's say this one is cargo, C-A-R-G, I missed a letter, salvage, and flight. These are just three that I'm picking up and coming to mind right now. There are dozens and dozens of feature streams. Squadron 42 is essentially just an enormous feature stream. But everything from persistent entity streaming to server meshing, all these things, they're all feature streams. And this is where they work. Now, let's see, what colors? I'm going to use green and blue for this. Now, what happens through the course of development is that while they're working in these other environments, occasionally they check things in. So cargo will be like, that thing works, we really like that, so we'll check that in up to game dev. Can we zoom in on the other? Do the same one? Is that going to work? Okay. So that'll zoom in. And then flight will check something in. And say salvage will check something in. And these things will go to game dev. But they will also pull things down. Like say salvage had something, was working on something, developed something, and in a meeting, the cargo guys heard about it and says, oh, we really want that. So they will pull down as well. And that'll pull down from there, and that'll pull down from there. These are just random. They happen at different times, in different places, based on how we think a thing is working, whether we think it's worth checking in, whether we like it. It all goes back and forth. So they're separate, but still in communication. It's not like a big open floodgate. It's little tiny, yeah, just take this. I want to take this file and not take this file. It's what we call check-ins and stuff. So everybody's sending things back and forth. As you might imagine, if you can extrapolate this down to about 40, 50, 60 different streams, game dev can be pretty crazy. Game dev has got all this stuff checking in. It gets even worse, or better, if you like game development like I do. Staging content is also doing the same thing. Staging content is checking things in periodically and sending things down to game dev. And then occasionally, like if you're building a salvage ship, you're like, well, I want to know how the salvage is going in case I need to like change the art and stuff like this. So they also pull things up. Whoop. I am not an artist. So basically, all these things, remember, extrapolate this down to like 40, 50, 60, whatever. They're all combining into this gigantic gumbo that we call game dev. It's where the worst of the worst bugs, the kinds of things we never show. Or we did show once, if you remember the Halloween special in 2019, the Easy How Before, the things we've seen. The worst kind of bugs in existence exist here, where everything just collides. It's where most of our QA works, and why QA are heroes, and why I will always tell their story every single time I can, because QA, the real heroes. Now, we work on a quarterly release schedule. So as we approach time to release a patch, we have to do a phase. Let's use red. We have to do a phase on game dev called stabilization. I'll just write stab, because that's what we want to do to ourselves during this. Now, stabilization is basically where we take all of this stuff that's colliding in game dev and try to stabilize it as much as possible. We also do a thing called exclude. That's where some of the things that have been checked in are not anywhere near done. They're not supposed to be in the next patch or even the patch after. That's where staggered development comes from. Like you're working on a thing, you know that thing's not going to be in there for another patch or two, but you still got to do check-ins because everybody else is looking for your stuff and stuff like this. So the exclusion process is how it's like, okay, that stuff's not supposed to be ready till the next quarter, so we start excluding that. Stabilizes the stuff that's supposed to be there, try to make sure that that works, and then, yeah, it's basically this giant, crazy period where when you're wondering when we're going to branch, and you're wondering when we're going to go to Evocati and stuff like that, it's usually because we are in this phase right here. When we get that to a point where it's like, yeah, all right, you know, nothing's perfect. It's not perfect yet, but we feel like we've figured out our exclusions and we got the things in that we expect to be in. We create a branch, and that we're going to do that up there. And I'm going to tell the story of last year here. So we'll do 317X. So we create a branch called 317X, and 317X now becomes this pipe. It's taking the content that's being checked into game dev, it's bringing it back up into staging, because some of this stuff has never been in staging, and you work on it a bit in staging and make sure it kind of works, it kind of fits, and the most egregious bugs are gone. Then it moves up to release. These are gates, so it's just another place to work on it, so that if somebody makes a check-in that borks everything, you've got layers of defense. You know, that check-in will only mess up game dev, it won't mess up staging. Or if it does get through game dev and goes to staging, it won't mess up release. Or if it does mess up game dev and staging and release, it won't mess up live. They're all gates trying to protect you, trying to protect the developers so that they have a stable or somewhat stable work environment. You with me so far? I can't see chat. Like I said, we didn't put this together, so I hope everybody's with me so far. So from this, we make a patch, 3.17.0. Is that readable? Is that legible on the zoom in? More or less. Okay, so 3.17.0. And that's eventually what goes to Evocati, to PTU, to then eventually to live. Now, what happens often is you'll have point patches. We did a 3.17.1 and then a 3.17.2, and we won't go up any higher than that because I think that's as high as my zoom in goes. Is that as high as my zoom in goes? Yeah, I can't really go any higher than that, can I? All right. That's enough to tell the story anyway. So the common perception is that a point patch is somehow a lesser patch. It won't have as much information, or won't have as much code, or won't have as much content as the primary 0.0 patch. Technically, procedurally, mechanically, there's no reason for that whatsoever. That is a planning and an execution thing. We intend for 4 patches to go out a year. when the realities of game dev allow for it. And we have designated that each one of those quarterly patches will be a 0.0, and we throw as much stuff into that one as possible. If I remember correctly, last year in 3.17.1, that was right before Fleet Week, I think. So it had the convention halls, and it had the Scorpius and stuff like that. I could be wrong. Gosh, it was a year ago. If I'm wrong, roast me an effigy on in the comments. Now, what would normally happen at this point is after you've put the patch out, your primary patch out, and you've utilized the point patches to bug fix and add little things here. Eventually, you come back. Now, while this has been going on, remember, each one of these layers is just a layer of safety and security so our developers can work. Because while that's been going on, these guys have still been checking in. These guys have all been checking stuff in. The whole time, because work doesn't stop. That's staggered development. These guys are up here, these guys are still checking in. And they're all adding stuff to game dev while you're up here, while other people are up here working in a relatively safe environment trying to get the patch out. So it means that before we go to the next patch, the next quarterly patch, which would be 3.18x, we're going to need another stab, another stabilization and exclude. Yeah, my handwriting's a Polygon. That's not even letters. Can you zoom in on that? Those are not even letters, but pretend that says stab. That's the normal process. That's how that happens every quarter. This is how most of this works. Again, there are a couple weird exceptions here and there. Like I said, there's another line called main that I'm leaving out, stuff like this. But for the most part, this is a fundamental explanation of the build system. Some features are bigger than others. Some features are more complicated than others. And depending on what you're trying to pull in and what you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to pull in and what you're trying to pull out, this phase, this stabilization phase, can take longer, can be more involved. You might remember from the letter from the chairman last year in May, we were going to put the biggest feature stream that we've had in a long time. Is that too low? We'll find out. PES. Is that seen? Okay. So yeah, you kind of see PES. Oop, this way. PES down there. So PES was going, and we wanted to get PES into game dev as soon as possible. Because as long as it's down there, nobody else is working on stuff. So it was important last year to get PES into game dev as soon as possible. And eventually they're like, yeah, we're ready. We can put PES in game dev. Now, if all of these other things make for one heck of a gumbo, you've heard us talk about this if you've been watching the programs and hearing us talk, PES really destabilizes the gumbo. So this stabilization period isn't going to be a short one. It's going to be a very, very long and involved one. Now, knowing that, because we've been doing this for a while, last year, what was decided to do is we would take the normal content, instead of not having a patch for months and months and months, that was the idea anyway. This is back in like April, here at April or May for 3.17.1. Instead of going, waiting until 3.18 to do another quarterly patch, we decided, we exercised another way of developing patches, or another way of putting content in the patches. If this is all the highways, we said we could take the surface streets. It's not a perfect analogy, but basically we went to all of these different feature streams and said, we don't have to go back and we don't have to go through this to do another quarterly patch if we continue to work in the 3.17 branch. So we went through and we took all kinds of stuff. We took derelict reclaimers, derelict outposts, the snake pit, planetary nav mesh, the 8 new rest station spaceships, space stations, the Grimhex Hospital, the new hangars. We took all of this stuff that was supposed to be in the Q2 patch, and we just said instead of taking the highways, we took. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm using blue. We said take surface streets, and take these individual things and bring them right into 3.17.2, 3.17.2, 3.17.2. We just rerouted the data. We rerouted the content and said, we're going to come up through the pathway that we've already made instead of going back through and making the new pathway, because PES was going to make this stabilized thing really difficult. And we were right. It did. If you're not aware, we're still, we've completed that station, that part, but 318 is still like, we're hoping for open PTU to all like any day now. And that's not saying it's today. It's like we're hoping for any day. It's like we're waiting for the word to come out. So this has been a heck of a journey, like we knew it would be. We were hoping it would be shorter, but. So to prepare for that, we brought all this stuff up. All of that stuff we talked about, it's planetary nav mesh, the AI in all the different outposts, the new outposts themselves, the new daily reclaimers, all those new missions, the hospital, all that stuff. That was a quarterly patch worth of stuff, but it was put into 3.17.2. That was the quarterly patch. So what I'm trying to illustrate here, and what I'm wanting to illustrate here, is that the virtue of a point patch is a technical thing. It is an indication of the path that the information and the data and the code and the assets took to get to where it's going. It is not an automatic determinant of the quality or quantity of work involved. And the reason I bring that up, 2 reasons rather. One, I really respect the quality and quantity of the work that the people that I work with do. And it pains me when I see people treating 3.17.2 like it was a patch that didn't count. That's me personally. I'm speaking only as myself here. Like they did a lot of really good work in that, and I see stuff where it's like it just gets dismissed because it's got a 0.2 patch. That's me personally. But the more effective reason is because if you read the roadmap roundup that came out on Wednesday, written by the wonderful Jake Bradley of the community team, this is what we're doing again this year. Basically, because of PES, we had PES last year, but now we've got another guy down here called server meshing. And it's gonna lead to all the same stuff. Plus, in all this time we've been branched in 3.18, this regular gumbo has gotten it's built up. It's built up, and it's going to take us a while to get through it. And instead of trying to do it at one time, we're going to utilize the alternate path, the path we've already built with 3.18, and we're going to continue building into 3.18 while teams tackle this underneath. So what this allows us to do is it allows us to continue to deliver you the quarterly patch that you want and that we want and everything, while other teams work to stabilize this underneath. It's working smarter, not harder. And yeah, I saw some of the comments and stuff about dismissing the 3.18.1 or 3.18.2 or whatever it's going to be, and stuff like this. And they're putting the new Laravel in there, stuff like that. So, and they're still determining what's going to go in. We have to determine what can go. Now that's the big ticket. Not everything can take this route. Some things require too many other dependencies. Salvage and cargo required PES. So we could not take them and do this route earlier. So some things require the dependencies, and some things will have to wait for that next branch. But there's lots of things that folks are working on that don't have to wait. New mining stuff and stuff like that. So there's lots more stuff that we can put in there. So basically, I just thought, I didn't know if this had ever been explained before. I couldn't remember. I've been here for 8 years. And if we had explained it before, it's probably changed or evolved in the years. So yeah, this is a little bit about the build system, how it works, and why the point patch mentality is an effect but not a cause. It is generally used to mean small content, small code, small deliverables, but it is not exclusively required to be so. It wasn't for 3.17.2, and we don't intend it to be for the next quarterly patch. Now, again, we still got to figure out what can actually do this stuff, and that's what everybody's working tirelessly on. Jake Ross and Guillaume and all those folks, they're working on that stuff now, and you can keep an eye out on the public roadmap and the roadmap roundup. They're going to tell you, what makes that trip and stuff like that. I can't tell you that. This is all about process. So, yeah, so thank you for indulging me in the first and probably the last Disco Discusses about the build system. I hope it was informative. I hope I didn't anger anybody internally. And if all goes well, I'll see you next week. Next week, speaking of server meshing, ISE is dedicated entirely to the server meshing summit that was going on here last month. We've got Benoit and Roger Gottfried and Chris Bolte and stuff. They're going to talk all about the new plans for server meshing that are being developed through the summit that was going on here. And it's going to be a multi-part thing. It's one part. The first part's next week, and then we'll check in throughout the quarter on as how the summit went. So yeah. So for Star Citizen Live, I'm Jared Huckabee, and thanks for humoring me. Bye.